flight.
Hey everybody. So who checked out the first episode for season 6 of Oprah Winfrey Network's Queen Sugar? I certainly did, and I had to say it was a very emotional episode. It started off very calm. It was great to see some of our favorite characters, well, all of our favorite characters, right, return back to screen. There's a lot of things that have changed over time, but ultimately we are seeing everyone pick up their lives from what occurred a little bit earlier this year, because mind you, season 5 just ended a little earlier, before the summer. So now we're seeing the characters moving forward after the pandemic, although technically it is still the pandemic. And I just want to highlight the biggest thing that I found in this episode, which is when the town of St. Joe did the vaccine, and I believe that it was Nova Bordelon that organized the entire the vaccination site. So you have the vaccination site, and there's so much going on. And one of the things I noticed, which I could have sworn was happening in real life too, I could have sworn I was hearing about this, in regards to vaccinations in certain towns where people that did not live in the town that the vaccination site was occurring, they were coming to that town in order to get vaccinated, when people felt like who should have had priority was those who actually live in that town. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know in the comment section below if you heard about any of these type of situations as well. But it was definitely what was displayed on last night's episode. Nova Bordelon's goal was to get the town of St. Joe vaccinated. To get those who are priority, high health risk, seniors, those who had reservations, and of course those who were technically residents. So that means that they would have to show identification. But what the episode highlighted was that most of St. Joe is a considered to be a black dominant town, black people dominant town. But many of the individuals who were showing up to the vaccination were also Caucasian, and they not only were Caucasian, they were faces that weren't even familiar for a small town. So these individuals who were in line couldn't even produce identification to prove that they were from the town. Now, throughout the episode, Nova kept emphasizing defunding the police. There was a scene where Aunt Vi actually said, like, is she serious? Like, defund the police? Well, what about women who are going through something at home, such as domestic violence, and they have to call on the police? Who are they supposed to call on? And if you have been on my channel, you would know I've made videos that you could definitely check out here on this channel in regards to this topic and where I stand in regards to defund policing. I completely understand what people mean when they request this. I completely understand, but I don't think people realize that when we say things like this, and I assume this is a black white situation, that there is not necessarily what my sister like to call cultural autonomy amongst black people, meaning that we don't have anything in place to substitute for police. If we defund the police, if we begin to remove police off of the streets, in certain neighborhoods especially, we don't have a substitute for that as far as the so-called black community goes. So for example, when there is the crime that's going on that we don't like to refer to as black on black crime, but when there are crimes that are going on and things like domestic violence, who would individuals call that are considered to be black if we had quote unquote defunded the police? There's also backlash when we go around saying this publicly, how we feel about police, and when we begin to verbally disrespect those, particularly those who had nothing to do with the violence that other people that wear that uniform have inflicted on the community. So instead of taking out our frustration directly on that person who has inflicted that harm on the community and betrayed the community's trust, we go around and we say all police, which is generalizing. And what happens in that scenario is the other police officers who may have really meant well and really wanted to protect the community begin to feel not valued, and therefore could care less about doing the job anymore, or walk away from the position altogether, again leaving the so-called black community vulnerable. At the episode yesterday evening for Queen Sugar season 6 episode 1 was a perfect example of that, because when things got crazy at the vaccination site, when individuals began to get upset and irate over how the vaccination was being distributed, Nova, the same person who was going around saying defund the police publicly, called the police as a last resort in order to get assistance with maintaining the crowd for the vaccination because they began to become irate. And once she did that, I immediately was like, girl, you calling the very same people that you are on a day-to-day basis dogging in the public. You're dogging in the media. It is well, you are well known around there for saying defund the police. So how do you think they're going to respond when they show up? And sure enough, instead of helping Nova Bordelon and the individuals who were there to help distribute the vaccination, they immediately jumped on the side of the customers, particularly the Caucasian customers, because after all, they were Caucasian police. So they ultimately jumped on the side of the Caucasian customers and even called out Nova for wanting to defund the police and telling her, like, she needs to shut her mouth. And that is the issue. Now, I'm not saying the police are right, and on there or in real life, particularly those types, okay? Because we have to hold the people that are acting that way responsible and not hold everyone else. Because mind you, where I'm from, which many would consider the quote unquote hood, I have witnessed numerous times where police probably should have used excessive force in order to defend themselves, but they attempted to be patient with the community because they understood what the demographics were that they were dealing with, and they did not want to resort to that. They saw people as people, and they attempted to assist them, and they stayed patient until it became to the point where they had to apprehend individuals. Not to mention, I also live in an area where most of the violence that occurs here isn't coming from police. It is coming from what is it, citizens. It is coming from the citizens of the community. So, with that being said, I understand I'm not going to sit up here and look at an incident where it's some police involved and they inflict the harm on the community, but yet I take what they've done and I put it on every single police officer, knowing fully well every single police officer is not out here doing those things. Instead, I'm going to take it out on the individuals that are actually responsible. Those same officers that actually did those things are the ones that need to pay. With that being said, and the reason being because again, this episode showed who is the so-called black community supposed to turn to if we do what Nova did, like when we saw in this episode, going around, instead of holding the actual police members that inflict harm on the community responsible, she chose to go around saying defund the police like many do. And when it came down to it and she needed them, she realized there was no one else to defend her but them. And unfortunately, she got some sourpuss ones who need to go. That's pretty much what we saw in this episode. Some ones that just don't need to be officers. And then in the end, unfortunately, we see that Prosper is thrown down by a very impatient, immature, idiotic so-called officer. Unfortunately, that officer threw Prosper down, and he hit his head. And I feel like if he knew the community, if he understood the demographics he was dealing with, if he understood that, first of all, if he understood that and saw Prosper as an elderly man that Prosper really was, he would have found a better way to handle that situation. He just sucked. But he should pay, not the entire police department of St. Joe, those who are actually involved in the action. And yes, this is just a TV series. However, it is definitely, and it continues to reflect what is happening in real life, because it is clear at this point that we see that Queen Sugar takes situations and social issues that are happening in real life, and they use it to incorporate in their storylines. And they, in my opinion, they do so very well. And yes, I've seen comments where people say, this is just a race baiting series. It happens. That's the point. It happens. But some people may have a hard time distinguishing the fact that not every white person is this way. Not every black person is this way. So I get it when people say it's race baiting, because there is that fear that we'll all be looked at like we're all the same. However, again, it is one of those situations where it is an uncomfortable truth. And it is an uncomfortable truth. And it does become a catch-22 when, there are certain people that are wearing that uniform, and they are the way we saw these two officers behave in Queen Sugar. And at the same time, we also understand that there are those who really want to protect the communities that they serve. So that is it. I hope that Prosper will be okay. Already they're starting the season off with a bang, with controversy, real life stuff, real life social issues. There was much more going on in this episode, but I just wanted to highlight that because I didn't want to make this too long. I have other videos to get to, but you all let me know what you think about this season premiere of Queen Sugar in the comment section below. Listen, I'm hyped up for the rest of the season already. So that's it, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.